I've done a lot of videos, but this one's special because I'm from Virginia and I passed this test. No, I rocked this test. Hi, I'm Emma. I taught for over 8 years in Virginia Public Schools. Now I work with 240 to help teachers pass their certification exams, and today I'm gonna help you. This video is going to prepare you for the Virginia Communication and Literacy Assessment, which we call the VCLA for short. We'll focus specifically on the reading subtest. And this video is going to cover 3 things: what's on the test and how to study for it, the most likely concepts that will appear on the test, and we're going to go over a few practice questions. Ready to start? Great, let's jump right in. The VCLA Reading Comprehension and Analysis subtest consists of 5 test objectives. We can break these down to understanding the meaning of words and phrases, understanding the main idea and supporting details, analyzing the relationship among ideas, using critical reasoning skills for evaluation, and applying skills and interpreting information. And all of these test objectives are applied to written material. The 40 multiple choice questions you'll see are all passage-based. Expect to see about 8 fairly long passages, some with graphics, with around 5 questions tied to each. And by fairly long, I mean approximately 500 to 700 words. No need to cozy up for a novel or anything. Although that does sound nice. Maybe after this study session. Oh, and also the passages you see will typically be expository in nature, meaning they'll be informative as opposed to telling a story. This type of text generally lends itself better to the descriptive statements under each of the 5 test objectives. And what a great segue. We'll get into those now. Test objective 1 is all about understanding the meaning of words and phrases. You'll need to use context clues to determine the intended meaning of a word that has multiple meanings. Use the context of the passage to determine the meaning of words and phrases, and identify synonyms or antonyms for words in a passage. Let's get into some tips to help us determine the meaning of words we might not know. If an answer choice is clearly never the same as the given word, eliminate that choice. Context matters. Even if a choice might sometimes be the meaning of the given word, it has to be the meaning used within the passage. Let's take a look at an example. The teacher told us to line up in alphabetical order. Since Smith supersedes Wilson, Susie was in front of me in line. In this sentence, a reader could use their understanding of alphabetical order and the context clue in front of me to infer the meaning of supersede as coming before. You can also use syntactic or semantic clues to determine the meaning of a word. Think about the placement of the given word in the sentence. Is it a verb? An adjective? Let's practice with an example. My ornery big brother yelled at me when I walked in front of the TV while he was playing video games. In this sentence, a reader who recognizes that the word ornery is an adjective used to describe the author's big brother could then use the context clue yelled at me to infer that ornery means something negative. Another strategy to try is to read the phrase of the passage and substitute in each answer choice you're provided. Which one makes the most sense? Let's try it out with the sentence we just saw. We already determined that ornery must mean something negative based on how it's used in the sentence. Let's substitute in our choices and see which one works best. My brave big brother yelled at me. That doesn't make much sense. My dynamic big brother yelled at me. Nope, that doesn't work. My considerate big brother yelled at me. That's an obvious wrong choice we could eliminate. My ill-tempered big brother yelled at me. That makes sense and is definitely the best choice to pick. We'll apply one of these tips in a practice question we'll see at the end of the video, but for now, let's get into our next test objective. Test objective 2 focuses on understanding the main idea and supporting details in the reading passages. Expect to identify the main idea of a passage, establish the sequence of events or steps presented in a passage, recognize information, ideas, and details that support the main idea of a passage, and recognize a writer's expressed or implied purpose for writing. Now, this test objective specifically asks about it, but really anytime you're given a passage, you will want to identify the main idea and the primary purpose. In every passage, these are 2 key takeaways that will help your understanding of the text, which will help you answer all kinds of questions about the passage. Let's take a peek inside our study guide for tips about determining the main idea of a passage.
Here are some tips for answering main idea and primary purpose questions. First, read the entire passage. Then, imagine you are summarizing it for your friend using one sentence starting with, "It was mostly about." What would you say? Check the bookends for clues. If the passage is a single paragraph, check the first and last sentences for main idea clues. If the passage is multiple paragraphs, check the first and last sentences of the first and last paragraphs for main idea clues. Make sure to find the choice that is a complete description of the main idea or primary purpose of the passage. This might be the first sentence, also known as the topic sentence, if the author never deviates from the thought. And don't forget, even if a choice is true or the author would agree, make sure it's their main point or primary purpose.
If you liked what you just saw, we have plenty more videos like that in our study guide. If you're ready to subscribe, the link is below. Are you ready to see what our next test objective is all about? Test Objective 3 covers analyzing the relationships among ideas in the passages you'll see. You'll be asked to recognize cause and effect relationships in a passage. And you'll be asked to analyze relationships between ideas that are in opposition, like pros and cons. You'll also need to recognize relationships between ideas that are in agreement, as in reasons to support a claim. And finally, you'll draw conclusions from information in a passage. All of these skills are important, but drawing conclusions is likely to come up a lot. So let's dig into that one. Your conclusion must logically follow the information from the passage. Stay within the given scope. Make sure your answer choice doesn't take part of the logical conclusion and twist it further than what the original passage intends. Try it out by inserting the conclusion you've selected at the end of the passage, and ask yourself, does it flow? Watch out for qualifying words in the choices, like best or only. These often limit or make the conclusion false. We'll try this out toward the end of our video, but now let's take a look at the next part of our exam. For Test Objective 4, you'll use critical reasoning skills to evaluate written material. You'll see questions that ask you to interpret a passage to determine the writer's position on an issue. Analyze the assumptions on which the validity of an argument depends. Analyze the structure of an argument and identify faulty reasoning. And distinguish between fact and opinion in a passage. It is a fact that you want to pass your exam. And in my opinion, we have the best study guide out there to help you do it. Or maybe that's more of a fact. Let's dive into the study guide to see for sure.
Let's get into some tips to help us differentiate between the two. Facts are often presented as statistics, data, numbers, or general knowledge. Facts can be proven. Here are some examples. The atmosphere is about 78% nitrogen gas. Our solar system has 8 planets. Dogs are members of the canine family. Now let's talk about opinions. Sometimes the author will directly let you know they're stating an opinion. Look for phrases like, I believe, or I think. Opinions use qualifying words or terms. Qualifiers modify the meaning of the words they come before or after by limiting it or enhancing them. Some examples are very, usually, always, and never. Let's look at some examples. It's my belief that lack of sleep disturbs the body's digestive processes. The author directly tells us this statement is a belief, not a fact. Van Gogh is by far the greatest painter of his time. By far the greatest is a qualifying phrase that modifies the relative quality of Van Gogh. This is how the author feels about Van Gogh and cannot be proven. The benefits from vitamins and minerals in fruits far outweigh the negatives of their sugar content. The phrase far outweigh modifies the magnitude of the benefits. Kids never love broccoli. The use of the word never makes this statement an opinion. While kids are known to be picky eaters, there are definitely some who love broccoli.
Well, it may be my opinion that using our study guides is by far the very best thing you can do to prepare for your exam, but the fact is that they are aligned to the real exam and full of instructional content, flashcards, and practice questions, even a full-length practice test to help you prepare and enter the testing room with confidence. All right, one more test objective to go, then we'll see some of the practice questions that we keep talking about. Test Objective 5 is where you'll apply skills to reading passages. You'll also interpret information presented to you in graphic form. You'll need to identify an accurate summary, outline, or graphic representation of information presented in a passage. You'll also need to interpret information presented to you in charts, graphs, or tables. You'll need to select the graphic forms that best present the information contained in a passage. All right, there's a lot to dig into here, and we have it all covered in the study guide. But right now, let's dig into outlining the organization of a passage. It is a must-know for this exam. Identify the main idea or central point of each paragraph. Do this before you even look at the choices. This will match the outline. If the outline you've thought of isn't one of the choices, use the process of elimination. What's obviously not correct? If you're torn between two choices, ask yourself, which one is more representative of main ideas versus just supporting details? Make sure the choices are in the correct order as presented in the passage. All right, we've made it through all 5 of our test objectives. Now, let's apply what we've learned to some practice questions. Let's start by reading a passage. Then we'll answer multiple questions about that same reading, just like you'll see on your real exam. The Age of Exploration marked a new frontier for sea navigation. This epoch began in the 15th century when Portugal and Spain started to expand their commercial interests and trade routes across the oceans, resulting in the exchange of goods and sometimes even traditions. Sailors used new technologies to navigate across the world, including a device called the quadrant, a fan-shaped magnetic object that measured the altitude of stars, the moon, and the sun in order to determine the latitude of a ship. Another device was the compass, which used Earth's magnetic poles to point navigators north, south, east, or west. Timekeeping devices, like hourglasses, were important in calculating how far and how fast a ship had sailed. Early navigators also used maps, although these were not always accurate and were often written during the course of the exploration. These maps were then improved upon with new explorations. With these new technologies, the success of the Age of Exploration was unparalleled. Let's answer some questions about what we just read. The author's main purpose in this selection is to explain the importance of the compass, to introduce the tools that made the Age of Exploration a success, to discuss Spain's influence on exploration, to describe the Age of Exploration. Choice B is the best answer. The majority of the passage is spent introducing tools of exploration, defining them, and stressing their importance. Let's take a look at our next question. According to the information presented in the selection, it is reasonable to draw the conclusion that which technology was least helpful to sailors during this period? The compass, the quadrant, maps, or all of the above choices were equally helpful? Actually, maps is the least helpful choice. We can draw this conclusion because the author does state that maps were not always accurate and were often written during the course of the exploration. This information helps us realize this is the best answer choice because if the maps weren't accurate, they weren't extremely helpful. Let's try one more. Which of the following best defines the word unparalleled? Perpendicular, groundbreaking, revolution, or minimal? Remember, the context matters. Think to yourself, where was unparalleled used? Why did the author use it? Choice B is best. Overall, the author is conveying that the Age of Exploration brought a new world of technologies. Therefore, the success would be new, which we could also describe as groundbreaking or unparalleled. Congratulations for making it to the end of the video. I hope you have a better idea of what to expect from your exam than you did when we started. Did you know that thousands of teachers have used 240 to help them pass this exam? If you really want to make sure you're prepared for the VCLA Reading Subtest, take the next step and subscribe to the 240 Study Guide. It has hours of videos so you can study while exercising or doing chores. It's test aligned so you know exactly what you need to study. And it has hundreds of practice questions so you can be sure you're ready. Are you ready to pass your exam? Click the link below right now to get started. Or I wish I could just come over and have a study group with some sweet tea.